Welcome to 52 Miniatures. I've started kitbashing miniatures to make 2 weird World War I armies for a tabletop game. The pinnacle of my kitbashing. Like reverent bones here, nothing like the shielding power of a relic strapped to your chest. Anti-tank stick Jack wishing for maybe a longer stick. Or the two-eyed, aka, no, I meant my left, sniper team. That horse is going to be made into a unicorn, I think. Now, I have to admit, looking at images from the war to end all wars gives me cold shivers. The horror, as Kurt would have put it. But weird World War I sort of takes that away because things are turned into fantasy, taking the generalized visual ideas and historical concepts of the First World War but putting them in a fantasy world. So you have trenches, gas masks, that sort of thing, but then add magic and monsters, the unreal. Maybe making it unreal with magic and monsters makes me feel more human about the whole affair. Or maybe it's just a form of denial, diminishing the horrors humans are capable of. But for some strange reason, I'm into the setting. And specifically, I'm into a game called A War Transformed. It's adding a folklore, sort of folk horror and fantasy twist. A recent bombshell success is Trench Crusade, adding a cursed crusade twist based on the actual existence of hell, demons walking the earth, and so forth. Another game in the setting is Forbidden Psalm, The Last War. And of course, there's severe flirtations with this style in Warhammer 40k's Death Corps of Krieg. I've been using Wargames Atlantic World War I British and German historical kits as the base for my 2 factions. These are great, high-detail plastic kits with a lot of assembly options. Admittedly, not very weird. That's where the kit bashing, adding bits from other kits, comes in. Like mixing Vikings in, or some medieval peasants or conquistadors for, reasons. I've also used some cultists from Frostgrave, some Oathmark miniatures, anything I have that I can make work, plus 3D printed bits mostly from Wargames Atlantic. The strangest unit I'm set on building is an occult relic-bearing precession thing. This is going to be a massively fun kitbash as well as show kind of how I've been thinking, how I use different bits, and the story behind the plastic bits, like theme or backstory. So a fun thing about A War Transformed is that some units are to be represented on one base, even if it contains many miniatures. Like the sniper is a team of 2 figures, but should be treated as one model on one base in the game. This precession can be any amount of figures, as long as they represent, I'll quote the book. Cutting through the din of fighting, the blare of instruments and shouted cries signal the presence of an idol of the gods. Celebrants dance and shout, spinning like dervishes in the smoke of burnt offerings. Borne on a litter or carried aloft on shoulders, terrifying images are glimpsed between vigorous limbs and swirls of fragrant incense. So the plan is at least 4 people carrying a litter, like a stretcher, with something relic-like thing on top. I don't have any minis that are designed for this, but I have a lot of arms carrying spears and bows that could be converted. And as it turns out, the best litter-carrying arm resource is medieval peasant bowmen. I guess they have it in them, plebs. I kitbash because I enjoy the act itself. But also the unique result. These creations are kind of personal expressions. Says something about my mind, I guess. But also, no one will have minis just like these on the table. The litter itself was made up of stormcast paladin backpacks. Stormcast bits are great for that ornamental holy relic vibe. Like these stormcast liberator hammers turned into a portable shrine backpack. Yay, it's bring your favorite relic to work day today. And a lovely Saint Decent head on there too. But Stormcast bits are obviously too large to use for parts of the soldiers themselves. This has to do with scale and style. Something to consider when planning a kitbash. Historical gaming miniatures are often 28mm scale. Warhammer, for example, is like 32mm scale, slightly larger. There is also the sculpting style to consider. Historical is often true scale. That means the models try to represent a scaled-down version of the real thing. Warhammer and other similar games are heroic scale, a stylized look like a cartoon, where often heads, hands, and weapons are larger. Be aware that the two styles can be difficult to kitbash. A few bits that I've used are 3D printed. I think 3D printing is a godsend when it comes to kitbashing. There's a lot of options out there, files online to download that very rarely will be made into plastic and sold in stores. A lot more female head options, for example, rare items like books, shells, bombs, and so on. And the fact that files are scalable means that the world is your resin oyster. Just don't eat it. In theory, you can kitbash any miniature for any game, but kitbashing is a necessity in some cases. A lot of games out there, like A War Transformed, don't actually have their own dedicated miniature line. Instead, kitbashing becomes a kind of integral part of the game itself. The overall theme for my miniatures here is, of course, accomplishing the weird. This is kind of easy, putting medieval helmets on soldiers carrying rifles. Same goes for the reverse, having soldiers with modern helmets and gas masks yet yielding swords or clubs. Also making weird weapons like crossbows shooting skull grenades, or just someone carrying a tombstone around. On top of this, I've tried to go for a scavenger look. Imagine an almost Fallout thematic. The war is fought between more of a ragtag of thinly spread out troops. Supply lines are since long almost non-existent. No one holds positions out of strategic importance anymore because, well, no one can remember the strategy. The last telegram came through 12 months ago and the last homing pigeon was sacrificed this past full moon. Platoons roam, scavenging as they go. They carry backpacks, bags, food and ammunition, pick up unexploded ordnance or worn gear along the way, anything that might come in handy. A War Transformed is situated in the Doggerland, a submerged landmass out in the sea between Denmark and England that, because of fiction, has been, well, unsubmerged. There's all kind of shipwrecks and old historical finds. That's where the conquistadors came in, by the way. I thought maybe the Spanish Armada lost a few ships several hundred years ago and, well, a helmet scavenged from a shipwreck is better than no helmet, even if it's Spanish. How the fancy pantaloons survived so long underwater is a mystery. There's a few things that are great to have around when kitbashing. Obviously, similar stuff you might need for assembling miniatures. Snippers, clippers, snappers, snap blade knife, that is. Various glues like super glue and plastic cement. But the most handy, I think, is something called sprue goo, as well as some sort of two-part epoxy putty, like green stuff. Sprue goo is what you get if you dissolve plastic sprue, that's what's left over after you cut off your miniatures, melted down in a lot of plastic cement. This creates a goo that not only glues plastic bits together, but can function as filling if you have gaps because bits don't quite fit. When the glue dries, it's just as hard as the original plastic. The epoxy putty is for the same thing. Sometimes you add an arm, for example, but you need to fill up a bit of a gap or something. But also, you can do some sculpting. For this project, I've started practicing my first sculpting. Now, I'm no sculptor and the whole idea scares me, but I've kind of forced myself to try. This sounds advanced. It's not. I've been making leather-type straps. You know, often a few weird things are added, a strapped-on weapon or skulls or packs. But without straps, it just looks glued on. So I've been making these thin straps to make everything look a little bit more polished. Oh, and a great idea is to keep the entire project in a box. I keep all this stuff in one big plastic box. So when it's kitbashing time, I just pull the one box out of the cupboard and I'm ready to go. Inside is not only the different plastic kits, but also small bits boxes. I've sorted out bits that might suit the project, as well as bases and anything I need to kitbash. My plan is to assemble 2 full armies, but that means so many miniatures, so I've decided to do this in parts. You know, I'm slightly wary of the feeling that I make irrelevant hobby decisions just because I film my hobby and put it up on YouTube. Painting an army in a weekend or kitbashing 2 armies in a week, it's not normal hobby practice. Yet normal is often treated as boring. It's not entertaining, right? Well, I'm not maybe quite normal, but I'm doing these armies for my sake, and so I apologize, but I'll do them at my pace. And I'll be honest and say that I'm also kind of kitbashing semi-blindly. The precession and the sniper team I made are specific units in the game. But apart from that, my approach has been to sit down and just make a fun model. Afterwards, I'll try and find a way to fit them into the game. I've kitbashed 12 miniatures so far. I intend to paint them now. And once that's done, kitbash some more. It'll keep me from building up a pile of unpainted minis, as well as keep the inspiration fresh for both kitbashing and painting. I'd like to get maybe a Viking-type kit or something like that for the next round of kitbashing. Maybe medieval knights. I'm missing a bit of that stuff. Overall, I kind of want the Germans to be a little bit more sort of armoured, and the British to be a bit more clothy with surplus bags. But there's also a lot more, let's call them, magically influenced units in the game. Some almost like zombies, if you like. That could be a fun break from the regular humans, do a unit of zombies in gas masks. Maybe some of them can carry the corpse of a horse or something. Yay, brain for days. Whatever game, I think a lot of these miniatures will come in handy, and it's just a lot of fun putting all of this together. I'd encourage kitbashing. Whatever genre, whatever game, just doing some head swaps or customizing weapons or doing completely custom work. It's a fun addition to whatever army or game system you have in mind. Now I'm looking forward to painting these miniatures, and I hope you're aboard for that part of the story as well. All of the miniatures you've seen in this video have actually been assembled live on Twitch. I'd like to thank all you viewers for the help along the way. I often take votes on what bit to put where. I mean, when it comes to miniature kitbashing. And also, thank you for watching. Don't forget to support your favorite creator. Doesn't have to be me, but most of us can only keep these videos coming because of the kind support of patrons. It's what keeps us going. So check out some patrons if you can. I hope to see you soon. Bye.